A rock comeback on the record today. The 4th of July fireworks of last night will continue all summer long on concert stages all over the country as some of the biggest names in pop music take their acts on the road. And for the first time in 11 years, the names of Phil and Don Everly will be among them. Here's Boyd Matson.
Good morning, everybody. The reunion of the Everly Brothers is like a refresher course in the history of rock and roll. The style they unveiled in 1957 is being copied even today. It was a countrified rock sound that immediately struck a responsive chord in the hearts of teenagers.
Whenever I want you, all I have to do is dream.
It was a music of optimism. It promised fulfillment for dreams of perfect love. Teenage spirits seemingly soared along with the high-pitched bluegrass-flavored harmonies. But the voices that blended so well on stage hit a dissonant note off stage.
Bye-bye, love. Bye-bye, sweet caress.
The Everly Brothers, after 16 years of singing Bye Bye Love, said bye-bye to each other.
Bye-bye, my love, goodbye.
I think it's just basically we had never been apart. I could never remember when Phil and I weren't working together. And then we had one microphone, and you were this far apart. You were singing on one mic. You were staying in one room together. It took us a long time to even figure that out. One toothbrush, one everything.
You stayed in the same room on the road?
One bicycle.
I think it was the one toothbrush.
The one toothbrush. I saw the Smothers Brothers last night on the TV show.
What did they do?
Well, they weren't getting along either, no. They were. It's good to be back.
The Everly Brothers were back together publicly last September at the Royal Albert Hall in London.
I want you to know that since you walked out on me, nothing seems to be the same old.
Their parting had been dramatic. Phil smashing his guitar and walking off the stage in the middle of a performance. They needed a decade of breathing room, getting together only for family emergencies.
Our father's death and everything. I mean, we were there together. We spoke. We,
Yes,
you know.
and family business things.
Family
we
business.
just didn't do any business.
We didn't hang out much. If at all.
Well, how was the first meeting when you were
It was fun. We went to lunch.
Lunch.
I managed to get drunk and sick.
Phil got sick.
I get sick on a glass of wine anyhow, but
No, we had it. It was just
Yeah,
like a
we had a good
reunion.
time.
Just, all our friends were there. We all had a wonderful time.
yeah.
How did that feel the first time that you came out and actually did some harmony after 10 years?
We was in this room right
Yeah,
here,
it was very-
and we had the group together and everything. We were all wandering around, and we just walked up to the microphone and sang, and it
There's
sounded
a-
fine to me.
There was a little bit of, the
You wonder.
anticipation. You wonder, just it's like jumping into a swimming pool. You don't know whether the water's cold or hot, if you
Yeah.
haven't stuck your toe in, and we hadn't stuck our toe in the music yet, But when we did it, as soon as the first two notes, you knew it was going to be solid.
Yeah.
Well, for goodness sake.
With their version of Family Feud finally over, the Everlys are again as close as they were in 1959 when they shared the same guitar with Tennessee Ernie Ford. This bit of three-on-one showmanship was taught to them by their father, who also taught the boys to sing harmony. Don is 2 years older, which meant he had the deeper voice first as a kid, so he got to sing the lead. As it has turned out, Don still has the deeper voice. So Phil says the one thing the brothers never argued about is who would sing the solos.
The only time that the discussion came up was when we did Ebony Eyes. There's a recitation in the middle, and the lines are, the plane is way overdue. And Donald, he sang the lead so much that suggestion came up, and I think I might have made it that I did the recitation, right? So I went out there and did, and I said, the plane came way overdue, it sounded, I can't make it, that's when I get that Minnie Mouse sound. I said, that's the worst damn thing I ever heard in my life. I will not have it. That's the only time, though. That's almost a
I
collector's
haven't.
piece. There's still a copy of that around with me doing
Well,
it.
we've never done that on us. The recitation's never been done since.
I'll wake up, little Susie, wake up.
No more recitation, but fortunately for their fans, the Everly Brothers are at long last singing again. And tomorrow you can hear some of their new music when we continue our interview with the Everlys.
It's over, it's 4 o'clock and we're in trouble deep. Wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie.
Are you awake? Tomorrow, the Everlys talk about the 60s and how hard it was to find themselves going out of style. We'll be back with more on Today, right after these messages.
This morning we have already dealt with the national concert tours of the Jacksons and Julio Iglesias. Well, the Everly Brothers are also back on the road for the first time in more than a decade. And Boyd Mattson is on the record this morning with part 2 of his interview with Phil and Don.
Good morning, everybody. The Everly Brothers came out of a country music tradition rooted in the backwoods of Kentucky. The area was home to the flat-picking guitar style made popular by Chet Atkins and the bluegrass singing that was made famous by Bill Monroe. Don and Phil Everly took those traditions with them to Nashville and added something new. The Everly Brothers weren't just waking up little Susie in 1957. Their singing was helping to wake up the world to rock and roll. Looking at this old footage, it's hard to believe, but back then, their hair was also considered as radical as their music.
Buddy Holly and you and me, and they got a couple of the other guys on the tour. The photographer and the press man came to the show. Now, all they wanted was a picture of the profiles of the guys and the girls, the girls, the sister act. And they wanted to make a picture that said how the guys looked like the girls, the Shepherds. And what it was the hair. They were only interested in the length of your hair.
The caption under the picture
And it wasn't that long anyway.
Yeah, the caption under the picture was that the only way you can tell the difference between rock and roll boys and rock and roll girls is the rock and roll boys have longer hair.
A man in Kentucky sure is lucky to look down in Bowling Green, yeah.
Well, times changed, and the hair got even longer. But instead of leading the way, the Everly Brothers were trying to catch up. In the mid-'60s, their popularity was usurped by groups such as the Beatles, the Byrds, and Simon and Garfunkel, groups who admittedly copied their harmonies from the Everly Brothers.
I was frustrated because Phil and I couldn't seem to be accepted about with our music at that point. Music seemed to have sort of a hidden meaning. I wanted to hear us on the radio too, and I said, well, this sounds, we can do that. We can do this, we can do that. I mean, it just never, I don't think I ever heard a record of ours during the late 60s on the radio.
I've been lied to. I've been made blue. When will I be loved?
Eventually, the era of psychedelic music passed, and the Everlys were loved again. Their place in rock history now secure, the brothers have a better perspective on the fickle nature of fame.
They're going to say it about Michael Jackson in a few years. I mean, it has to happen. You don't stay on, you can't stay at that feverish pitch. No, you just can't do it. Yeah. The Beatles, you can't do it. It has to go through different things.
There's if you were in the business, a very hot act, you'll have about a 5-year intensity run. And then there's a leveling period. And if you've done the 5 years, if you've done good work during the 5 years, you'll be here in 25 years.
Mama told my son, you better watch your step. If you knew I was Molly, I bought my mama said, good golly, Miss Molly.
The Everly Brothers themselves didn't hold up as well as their music. In 1973, they split up, barely talking to each other and never singing together. But the wounds have healed. They are on the road again, and once more, rock and roll is fun for the Everly Brothers.
The best part of rock and roll is it keeps you young. I have a 17-year-old son, and I don't have a generation gap with music with my son. And it is so good for him to play something that I like. He brought a song, and he had a song called Freakazoid, you know. He played Freakazoid for a week, and I liked it up until Tuesday. I must admit that.
When the Everlys started, critics were saying no rock and roll would last past Tuesday. But 25 years later, their hits are considered pop classics, and the Everlys are hailed as founding fathers of rock and roll.
I'll do my crying in the rain. Johnny is the joker, he's a bird. Everybody's joker, he's a bird. Don't ever leave me lonely. Say that you love me only, and that you always let it be me.
And that's on the record. Now back to the Today Show in New York.